In today's episode, we talk to Bola Sokunbi, a certified financial education instructor and the founder of Clever Girl Finance, one of the largest personal finance platforms for women in the U.S. We talk about her Nigerian upbringing and how that really catapulted her into being the financial educator she is today, with a focus on women in money. If that's of interest, we hope you'll stay tuned.
Sugar Daddy Podcast, yo. Learn how to make them pockets grow. Financial freedom's where we go. Smart investments, money flow.
Hey babe, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about one of my favorite topics, which is women and money and how to make more of it and how to make your money work for you and how to just feel more confident with money. And this is not to exclude the fellas because we love you too, but we're going to focus on the ladies today. We're excited.
Yeah, you guys should always know that when we have specific topics that are focused on maybe one demographic, doesn't exclude everybody else. And especially for us men, we talk about ourselves all the time. We don't need to go into specifics of us.
Sometimes it's just about the ladies, and that is okay. We have a very special guest today, Bola from Clever Girl Finance. I've been a longtime follower of the work that she's doing and all of her content, and we're excited to get into the conversation. So Bola, thank you for being with us today. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yay! Well, let's get into the bio so that everybody knows how amazing you are. And then, of course, we'll get into your first money memory. Bola Sokunbi is a certified financial education instructor, finance expert, best-selling author, and the founder of Clever Girl Finance, one of the largest personal finance platforms for women in the U.S. She's the author of Choosing to Prosper, My Wealth Plan Workbook, and the Clever Girl Finance book series. Bola was named the 2021 Financial Education Instructor of the Year by the National Council of Financial Educators. She's been featured by major outlets including CNBC, Forbes, Time, Good Morning America, BBC, and many more. You were just on Good Morning America again, weren't you?
Yes, a couple months ago, I think.
Okay, I feel like I always see the clips and I'm like, yay, Bola. I'm always cheering for you when I see you. I mean, that's a big stage, so congratulations.
Thank you so much. I do appreciate it.
Yes, of course. So Bola, before we get into all the work that you're doing and how Clever Girl Finance came to be and all of your books, would love to know your first money memory.
So I have a few, but the one that comes to mind is I remember, is it a good or bad memory, first of all?
It can be either.
Whatever.
And I remember I had saved all this money up. And she had this great idea that I should loan her this money because she wanted to start a lollipop business or something. And every instinct in me told me that this was a bad idea because her business plan sucked and her strategy was terrible. But she put so much pressure on me to loan her all the savings I had. It was a really small amount, like very small amount. But as a kid, it's a big deal. And so I gave her this money. And then all of a sudden, I stopped seeing her around the neighborhood. She stopped hanging out, and then she would see me and act like she didn't know me. And I was like, wait a minute, did I get scammed? And so that's a memory that I have.
I bet you read those business contracts even more with the fine-tooth comb now,
It
right?
was a verbal contract. Can you imagine that? So don't even do that too. Yeah, don't even do the verbal contract. Yeah, so many lessons to take away.
How old were you?
I'm probably like 7 or 8. Like I was young. I was little.
Was she older?
No, we were the same age.
Oh my gosh.
Scamming at a young
I
age.
know.
Jeez.
Listen, you can't be putting that kind of karma in the world at 7. Oh my goodness. Okay, so what is a good money memory? If you had to, because that one's obviously not so positive.
A good money memory. I guess it's just advice that my dad would give me. My dad always had all these little anecdotes about money. So my dad would always say things like, never marry a liability.
Ooh. Okay, Daddy.
And he would say things like penny wise, pound foolish. Mm-hmm. So every time he would give us pocket money, he would always give you like some money advice. So he said, never marry a liability, penny wise, pound foolish, things like that. So I always remember those little clips that he had about money.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Did he talk to you about money often, or was it just the little anecdotes when he handed you some money?
He talked about like the anecdotes. He talked about It's similar to what a lot of our parents did. They talk about what he couldn't afford,
Oh, yeah.
what he wasn't going to be doing. But my parents didn't necessarily, my at a young age, involve us in their inner workings of their finances, you know? So it was more so like them telling us little bits of advice, but they didn't say, hey, this is what we're going through financially.
Okay.
Where are you from?
I'm from Nigeria.
Okay.
Did you just say you went to school with somebody named Bola who's Nigerian?
Yeah, it's not her. Yes.
That would be a crazy coincidence.
Not me, right?
Yeah.
So Bola is a unisex name. It's typically a nickname. We usually have a bigger name. Yeah.
Is it, when it's the longer name, is it still unisex or does it then become gendered?
It depends on the name. So my name is gendered. Well, I think my name is not very common. My name is Moji Bola, and it's typically female. But Bola can be male or female, or anybody can have this name. It's a nickname.
Okay. What does it mean?
So the OLA means wealth.
Oh, well, how
Yeah.
appropriate.
But not wealth in terms of like money, but more so like, so my full name, Moji Bola, means I was born into wealth, or I woke up into wealth. So it's like wealth in terms of like happiness, joy, peace of mind, good health, that type of wealth.
Yeah, the best kind of wealth that there is. Oh, I love that. Okay, we have a lot to talk about because you've done so much over the years. I would love to start with Clever Girl Finance and the roots and the origins, because I've listened to you on a lot of other podcasts and outlets, and I love how you wanted to really empower women with their money and to make it free and accessible. So I'd love to hear the origin story and how you've kind of remained, true to those roots, because that's how you started. And correct me if I got any of that wrong.
So the origin story for Clever Girl Finance, I didn't know I was I was gonna build a Clever Girl Finance, if I'm being really honest. So like when people ask about the origin story, I didn't have this. It wasn't something I knew I was gonna do. I never thought I would ever be in personal finance or anything education related or anything women focused. No, I didn't have this grand plan or this grand vision. It was more so personal interest. I was interested in personal finances. I come from a background where I'm trying to think of how best to not make this a long-winded story. But I come from a background where, I grew up watching. I learned from observation of both of my parents, right? My mom got married very young. She was 19 years old. Well, given the time, it wasn't young. A lot of people were getting married in their late teens, early 20s. She got married to my dad, who was much older at the time. He was in his 30s. And my mom only had her high school diploma. And she got married. She had 4 kids, including myself. And as she got older into her 30s, she started to see things with her friends that she didn't really like. So as a little girl, when my mom was in her mid 30s, she had me in her 30s or mid to late 30s, when I probably would start to remember things like this. I would notice friends would come over and they would have suitcases and they would have all their kids and they would be there to spend the night because they couldn't go home. They didn't want to go home. And I realized that some of them are experiencing situations of domestic violence or domestic abuse, and they were trying to find a way out. And my mom was like a safe space for them to come to while they figured out their next move. Or it would be situations where the spouse died and the family came and took everything and pushed the woman out with her kids, and they had nowhere to go. So again, they would be in our house with suitcases and they would be there for a short period of time until they could find their footing and move on to rebuilding their lives or starting over. And I remember as a little girl sitting in the living room, just listening into these conversations of what they could do and, how they were going to get by, and, my mom encouraging and supporting them. And my mom getting to this space where she didn't ever want to be like in that situation, because these were women who were her friends, the same age as her. A lot of them had not gone to college. A lot of them were stay-at-home moms, raising kids, didn't really have anything to do with the household finances. They got monthly allowances to take care of the kids, to buy food, and that was it. And so she decided that she was going to go and get her college degree in her mid-30s. And that was a challenge for my dad because my dad is of a culture and upbringing and an era where it's your responsibility to take care of your family and your wife and your children. And, it was like, do you not have enough? Why are you unhappy? What are your friends telling you? So there was a bit of conflict in our household around that time because my mom was adamant that she needed to go back to school. And so I watched her go back to school. I went to her college classes with her. My mom eventually went to school. She got her undergrad. She got her MBA. She started working in investment banking. And then she started getting herself involved in all kinds of different side hustles just to bring in money. And my mom became this hustle queen, making all this money. And then fast forward several years, my dad has to retire early for health reasons. And my mom becomes the breadwinner of the family. So for me, watching that, I realized that, I also never wanted to be in the situation that I saw my mom's friends in. And I realized that the one way I could empower myself was learning how to make my own money. And of course, it was my dad telling me, don't ever marry a liability. Anyway, I sound foolish. And then on the flip side of that, when I also think about just like, the women in my family, my mom comes from a background where it was her older brother who pushed her to go to school, to grade school. He supported her to go to grade school and high school because her parents were just like, I guess they were poor. And at the time, education wasn't the priority. Like if the child could go to the farm and make money, that's what the child would do. On my paternal side, my paternal grandfather wasn't big on, he didn't really trust the colonial masters at the time, which were the British. And so when they came with their formal education, he said, well, if I was going to send anybody there, I will send the child that I think is going to grasp it the most. And that would be the male child, right? So he sent my dad. Well, my dad went. His mother sent him. My dad has an identical twin sister who did not get formal education because my grandfather did not see the value in educating the female child. And so my dad he started the first grade at age 13 because of finances, logistics, hesitancy with this new British formal education. And just to give you context, my dad is about 89 years old now. So this is like whole era of life, in the past. And so my dad has his undergrad, his master's, he has 2 PhDs, but my aunt doesn't read or write because she was not formally educated. And so seeing that as a woman in my family, and she's very smart, she runs her own businesses, she's just not formally educated, but she's a smart woman. I realized that in this world, we still, back then they very much lived in a man's world, but we still live in that world because when I started my own journey of getting a job, saving money, going to a financial planner's office, his biggest concern as a white male was, well, where did you get this money? Who gave it to you? Are you married? Do you have a boyfriend? Ha ha ha. And he was making jokes that to me were not funny, especially given my background. Why do you assume all these things about me? And so to cut a long story short, for me, starting Clever Finance was more about personal interest. I wanted to learn about money. I didn't know what I didn't know. I'm a first generation immigrant here. I didn't know about 401k, about credit, about, a lot of stuff, but I wanted to do well. I wanted to make my parents proud. My parents made a lot of sacrifices for me and my siblings to be able to be here, to be able to go to college. And so my priority was to, number one, not be a liability.
There's that theme again.
And just, the impression I got from my mom and her friends, be able to stand on my own 2 feet and not be dependent on anybody for anything. And so that's really where the idea from Clever Finance was born. Even though it took me several years graduating from college and figuring out my own finances before I actually got to the idea. But that's kind of like the origin story of why the business even exists and why it focuses on women.
That is so powerful. Thank you for walking us through that. I think that context, not only the differences and obviously generation from your parents, but culturally, I think you breaking out of that and your mom doing that. And then what you touched on, I'm glad you mentioned it because my first thought went to, well, how did your dad feel about your mom wanting to go to school and get educated and then eventually earn her own money? Because culturally, that seems like a very big shift. So, and thank goodness she did with, his upcoming health problems, that she was able to step in. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Were you gonna say? I know there's so much to process. I love it.
I was going to ask, do you see any type of cultural shift for, say, first generation immigrants from Nigeria now switching to the idea of being more open to women being educated?
Absolutely. I mean, that was a whole generation ago, right? Education is the norm. It is a given. I mean, and it's kind of similar here, where there's for women in general, there's this big, I guess when you think about education versus getting married, once you get your college degree, okay, where's your husband? There's still that mindset, that expectation that exists for women. In my culture, it is a big expectation. Okay, so where's your husband? Okay, we get that you want to start your business. We get that you want to get a master's degree. We get that you want to do all these things, but okay, where's your husband?
Yeah.
You want to, so there's that pressure, and it may not come from aunties or mothers. It may come from your peers. It may come from social media, but that expectation still exists. But education is expected. You're expected to go to school and to do well and to succeed. But there's always there's not a point. Okay, you now have the education. You have the college degree.
Now where's your man?
Where's the husband?
Where's the husband?
Because I was telling Jess that going when I was going to school in high school and stuff like that, had a few friends that were first generation Nigerian, and it was a huge focus on you are going to get straight A's, and that is the only option you have available to you. Education was huge. Yes, because what the realization was for them was that when our colonialists came, because of the power that they had over the continent or the part of the continent, the one way that people realized that they could get ahead, because they couldn't fight back, they physically were not powerful enough, resourced were not powerful enough. The one way they could fight back was with education, was by using their minds. And so education took this huge shift where we're going to take everything that they want to teach us, and we're going to do exceptionally well. And we're going to fit ourselves into these spaces and fill up these spaces and succeed. Because when you have education, it comes with money. And when you have money, it comes with options. And so there was this huge shift from distrust of what they were bringing to, how can we leverage this? Because this is the one thing that we know we can do really well, given that we don't have the money, we don't have the resources, that they have. What else can we do? We can get educated. So education is huge, especially in West African culture. There's this saying or a joke that Nigerians have: you're either a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, or a disgrace.
Yeah. Very limited options there. I feel like that and Indian families, right? Yeah. It's very similar.
So I remember coming home with report cards, and there would be B's, and my mother would be like, so the person who got the A's, did they have two brains?
Oh.
Did they have it was never congratulations on your A. It was so who else got an A?
Right.
Why was your A not A plus? I'm like, Mom, there's no A plus.
The pressure, the immense pressure. Oh my gosh.
That aligns, because I always joke with Jess, high school that I went to was majority white. And, the AP courses I took, there was very select minorities and very specific, less, Black people in those classes. And I would say 2/3 of the Black people that were in those classes were first generation Nigerian.
There you go.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in North Carolina.
Okay.
So,
Bola, let's go back to that interaction that you had with the white male financial advisor, and he's asking you where you got your money from. And did you end up working with him, or what?
Of course not. No.
Okay. I didn't want to make any assumptions.
No, I was like, the hell with this guy. No, I did not. In fact, I left there so upset. I was like, I don't even want to work with any financial advisor. Nothing against financial advisors, but he just gave his entire industry a bad rep to a young 20-something girl at the time. And I was like, I'm going to go figure this out by myself. I'm going to go learn how to invest. I'm going to go learn about my 401k. I'm going to go learn about all these things on my own. I don't need this man to judge me and assume make assumptions about me. And it was a good thing I did that because, that was the beginning of me realizing that there are so many assumptions made about women, especially women of color, especially when you get to a certain point in your career with your finances. And if you don't have a good support system, that can be very deterring to your ambition and to your confidence and to what you think you can achieve, because people tend to want to put you in your place or a place that they assume that you belong in.
I also think people try to place their own limitations on other people.
Yeah, they try to do that. And so for me, I was like, I'm not going to tolerate this from this. I don't even know who you are, first of all. I don't know you.
Good for you.
So no, I did not invest with him. And I went and I figured it out on my own.
What was that?
And I started blogging. I started a personal blog where I would just talk about saving and investing and what I was spending my money on. And that had like a little bit of a readership with my friends. I also had friends at the time who would blog. And then I discovered finance blogs. This was very early on. And then I discovered, I was like, I'm going to figure this out on my own. I went to the bookstore and there was not a lot of resources. I remember I was looking for a finance book for women. I couldn't find anything. I found a Susie Orman book.
I was going to say Susie had to be there.
But her book was not, she hadn't even released her Women and Money book at the time. She had a book on wills and trusts.
Oh, okay.
And the finance book for women at the time was David Back. And I remember picking up the book and I'm like, this is so weird that a white man wrote a book for women on money. I was like, but I'll buy it anyway. Fantastic book. It was Smart Women Finish Rich. And it was based on his grandmother's story. And I was like, you know what? Like, a woman should be writing this book.
Crazy concept.
Right. A book.
But I will read this one anyway. And, I bought that book. I read it to shreds. I bought a new copy. Susie Orman did eventually come out with, or I did eventually find her Women and Money book. But there was just, those are the two.
Yeah, slim pickings.
There was not, and even just personal finance books in general. The biggest series at the time, I think, was the For Dummies. There was not a lot. There was not a lot going on.
I think people nowadays forget that, go back 10, 15 years and there was a void. You had like maybe 2 or 3 voices in the industry, all white.
Yes.
And that was it.
Yeah, mostly male. There was not much, and a lot of the topics were complex. And even now, there still is a void in the market. I remember I wrote my book on investing. It came out in 2019, and my publisher said, "Well, typically when you have a book, they want to know what other books like this in terms of marketing. What other books like this exist? Where would you say your book fits in?" And I went to look for foundational investing books. There were not that many. Foundational investing books written by women. There was like 2. One of them was from 10 years before I wrote mine. There still is a bit, foundational investing books written by women. They're very few and very far between. There is still a void, even I think because you are in the personal finance space, I'm in the personal finance space, we think that there's a lot of voices out there. But if you go on Amazon right now and you were to do books on budgeting, maybe you'll get 10, 15. But if you do books on, I don't know, business, you'll get 700.
Yeah.
There's not enough.
And as you said, when you even break it down even further into women, like I think a few of the books that I've read that they maybe had chapters on women investing or women investors, but not an entire book dedicated to it. Because I can't remember the name of the book at this moment, but they did have a chapter dedicated to historical women investors that were extremely good. And basically the synopsis was that women are actually better investors than men because they don't overestimate their ability. If they do well in the market, they don't think it's solely because of they have some innate ability to read the market, unlike anybody else.
You guys are
men
just
overestimate
ridiculous.
their abilities while women actually just follow the basics.
It's the same with statistics around when men apply to jobs. I have a friend who works in HR and she does interviews and she's like, she'll have a resume in front of her and she's like, a guy's resume and a girl's resume or a lady's resume. the lady will be overqualified for the position, and she'll interview and she'll downplay her accomplishments. The guy will be underqualified, and he'll come in there and talk like he is the CEO of the company, and he'll overpromise.
And then underdeliver, and she'll have to pick up the pieces after the team meeting.
And the thing is, that actually starts really young. So my mom is a retired college professor, and I remember having conversations with her about it, where even in grade school, little girls will only raise their hand to answer a question if they are 100% certain they know the answer, as compared to a boy will do 40 or 50%.
It is because it's very much a cultural thing, and that needs to shift. It's shifting a little bit, but if you think about it, right, as women, we are, think about to your mother and your grandmother's generation. It's all about being demure, being mindful. We all have a good recipe from our grandmother to bake something or to cook something. We know how to be prim and proper and keep the house nice, and that's like the package. And then the young boys are taught about sports and like business and like cars and like, being vocal about stuff and like the chase.
I like how your voice changed on that.
Yeah.
And it's like two different worlds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're raised like this, and consciously or subconsciously, we're mothers and, fathers are passing down these lessons to their children. And even if they're not passing it down, we're observing in the house. So this is mother's place. This is father's place. This is what girls can do. This is what boys can do. This is what nobody can do or can do. And then it's like we get older and we think about, okay, well, I should only raise my hand if I know the answer. I should, it's very much impressed upon us, but the world is changing, right? Women are in these spaces where, yes, the gender wage gap exists, but we're earning more money than our mothers and our grandmothers. Women are choosing not to get married. Women are sole household earners, or they're breadwinners, they're single mothers, which means that they are in this position where, whether they're choosing to or not, they have to make those firm decisions about their finances and for their children and for their lives. And so I find it very interesting when people try to put women in like it's harder for women, because I feel like in the world we live in, there is nothing like a man's place. Men can do whatever they want to do, but there is a woman's place. Mm-hmm. And I feel that pretty much all the time. So I just did an interview for Business Insider. And I remember when we were doing the interview, they were like, oh, we want to talk about your husband. And I'm like, we're not going to talk about my husband, because every time I talk about my husband, he gets all the credit for all the work that I have done.
For you.
It also seems like a very weird question to ask
like
you
with
what your platform is. Like, no offense to your husband, but it's completely irrelevant.
To give them credit, they weren't trying to say, let's talk about they wanted to, so it was about finances and like what you have built. So they wanted to know like where we stand financially, but obviously some of my assets are tied with my husband. I'm not going to talk about those. Let's talk about me. Mm-hmm. And so that's the context there. And I was like, specifically because if I even bring him into this interview, it's going to become about him, because I've done an interview in the past, and this was about me saving $100,000. And I did this interview with Money Magazine. At the very end, the interviewer asked me, oh, what does your husband do? And I said, he's a physician. And at the end, one sentence, this interview is paragraphs. Mm-hmm. At the very end, it had one sentence, and it says, Bola lives in New Jersey with her husband, who is a physician, and her children. One sentence. And it was how I saved $100,000. And I remember reading comments online. It was, oh yeah, it's because her husband's a doctor. She's a trophy wife. If her husband wasn't a doctor, how could she save $100,000? All these women just like to lie, like they don't have men. And I'm like, what is going on here?
That one title diminished all of you.
And the article clearly said Bola saved before she got married, before she had kids. But people just love to attribute, a lot of times, like you said, impressing their limitations, but a lot of times they like to, and it's many times it's other men who do this.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
Attribute your success to a man. And so, yeah, I think we've gone off topic from the original question.
No, it all works together. It all works together.
I think it's insecurity from the man's side because society has also, ingrained in men's mind that it's our role to provide. It's our role, and more specifically, to provide financially. And if that role, quote unquote, starts to erode, then a lot of men are like, who am I? Like, what do I bring to the table? Who am I in society? And their own insecurity with that happening leads to them, lashing out against women who are doing well for themselves.
But do you know how much we could do together?
Oh,
Do you know what we could? And I understand this.
I
Like,
very much understand that.
when I was getting married, we went to marriage counseling, and we're sitting with the priest, and the priest was like, "Oh, so tell me what you imagine your marriage is going to be like." So I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to work. Sure, we're going to have kids, but I'm going to work. My career. I tell the priest this whole grand plan. And my husband is like, "Oh, well, I just thought that when we got married that, you would stay home and take care of the kids." I'm like, "Whose kids?"
Oh,
Whose house? Say where?
for that.
I was like, do you know where I'm coming from?
Right.
Do you know my story? I'm not gonna stay home.
Did he think you were just going to flip the switch and be a stay-at-home housemaker? So
again, it's the way he's been raised to be a provider, to take care of his family, to deal with it, figure it out, and that's good. That's great. I give him credit for that, because there are some men who just don't want to take care of anybody or anything.
That's true too. Yeah, that's true.
And that's how he was raised. But I'm coming from a background where I'm sitting in the living room watching my mother's friends.
Mm-hmm. That's like childhood trauma that you're trying to undo.
Exactly.
Your generation.
So you're trying to tell me that I'm going to sit here and you're going to give me a monthly allowance?
No thanks. Oh my gosh.
And then when push comes to shove,
yeah,
I'm going to be out of house and home. Like, this is how my brain starts to like. And so it ended up being, and he's my biggest supporter. And, it ended up having the conversation about what works for us. Right. And for me, it's like, I'm always going to work, but I'm always going to earn my own money. I'm always going to have my own money. That's just what it is. This is who I am. This is what gives me peace.
Yeah.
For me, like, my mom raised my brother and I by herself, and she was a college professor. So like for me personally, the concept of like not being around a strong woman who wants to make sure, like, at the end of the day, she could take care of herself is foreign, because that's not, that's the only thing I grew up with. So,
yeah.
So when we got together, it was like, yeah, of course I'm going to work. No, I'm going to take maternity leave and then go back to work, and I will always make my own money. And if I want to leave you, I will be able to leave you. No questions asked. That was always the bottom line, but I was always very clear about it. Like, I am not with you because you provide
exactly
anything that I can't get by myself.
And I've also said, it's like, I don't ever want to be with someone who needs me. I want to be with someone who wants to be with me.
Right.
I think there's a very big difference.
Yes. You're not a liability.
Not a liability. Exactly. Well, and I think because of that partnership, we work so well together. We started the podcast. There's, like you said, there's so much that we can do together if we work as a team. And so we figured that out very early, but he knew what it was. Just like your husband, he ended up figuring out what it was. You're always going to make your own.
So, and we are a great team, and, we support each other. He supports my goals, but given what I do, I also need to let women know that it is possible to succeed and be a good mom and be a good wife and take care of your home, but with support, right? So I've been judged for having a nanny, for having au pairs, for
Girl.
And I'm like, listen, this is
That's
you need a
amazing.
village. The saying that it takes a village to raise children is not for the birds. It's real, okay?
Yes.
And so in order to have all these luxuries, it means I have to make money.
Because they cost money.
And
But can we,
making money allows all those options.
Is your husband
Yes.
Nigerian also?
Yes.
can we just pause though for a second? Because I think as women, we recognize how difficult it is to raise children to keep a home, to make the meals, to plan the schedules, to do all the things, to volunteer at school. There's just not enough time in the day.
Mhm.
But then we want to sit around and criticize when we have made it to a level where we can get support, where we can have a nanny, where we can have a housekeeper, or, whatever that might look like. Why are we now shaming each other for getting the support that, let's be honest, we're all desperately craving more of because we need more support? It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. And I think it's just changing the narrative. And again, it comes from the idea of being able to do it all, but not being able to do it all without giving away your breakdowns.
Yeah.
Like women we're held to this expectation that we are super women and we can't show anything.
But getting a nanny or getting an au pair or having your groceries delivered or whatever it is that you're doing to get help is not a weakness. It's like, no, I'm recognizing these are areas where I could use support. And hello, if you're using money as a tool, then this is how I get more time in my day. This is how I'm a better parent and I can show up and actually want to spend time with my kids instead of being stressed because the house is a mess and the laundry's not done and I haven't cooked dinner.
Because that's the expectation for women.
Crazy. I know.
That when it doesn't seem that way, it looks like a weakness. And it's just like, for me, I have twins. And I remember, this is a little TMI, sorry, Brandon, but I remember when I had them, I couldn't breastfeed because it was just too much. One baby would latch, one baby would not latch. I got shamed for that. Oh, wow, you're not breastfeeding your babies. It's so important for your babies to bond with the mother. That was one. And this is someone who was dealing with postpartum depression. So you're telling me that I'm not a good mom because I'm not breastfeeding. And then I decided to stop altogether about 16 weeks in because I was pumping 80 ounces plus a day. You know what 80 ounces is?
That's a lot.
I was as skinny as this pen.
Oh my God.
I was so sick.
Yeah.
And haggard. And my doctor was like, girl, you need to stop this and go buy some formula because those babies are gonna suck you. Like, have you seen those alien movies where they come and they suck the
Yeah.
She's like,
stop.
Go and buy Similac. Okay.
Fed is best.
And then I got shamed for, oh, you're not going to breastfeed for 1 year. Mother's milk is best. And I couldn't believe it.
That's so
I think
terrible.
one of the most eye-opening things for me when we had our first child was we went to the breastfeeding class together. And as a guy with no kids at the time, you automatically think that breastfeeding is this easy, natural thing that everybody does. And the class was very eye-opening to the fact that maybe 50% of people are able to breastfeed successfully, easily, and all that stuff. And it's not this easy thing that everyone takes to. And I would also add on there, as a new dad, I actually think that I benefited from us not breastfeeding our child. And I was able to help out with the feedings because I was able to bond more. Because I think in that scenario where the mom is always breastfeeding, spending a lot more time with the child, it's hard for a new dad to kind of figure out where his role is. Because paternal instinct is not natural. It's something you kind of got to learn and stuff like that. And I definitely think being able to help out with the feeding early on helped me with that.
Yeah.
Paternal instinct is not natural either, if I'm being really honest. And for me, I had a baby that wouldn't latch. And secondly, the reason why I stopped breastfeeding was I was like, first of all, there's all these people in the house with me. My mother is here, my father is here, my mother-in-law is here, my husband is here. I'm getting a nanny. There's 5 people here. Yeah. And I am the only person who can feed these 2 babies, wake up every hour and a half. I'm like, what is this? Like, why are these people here if nobody can help me?
That's crazy.
What is the point of this? I'm like, no, I will be the cow to pump all the milk, and everybody's going to get on the rotation schedule to feed the grandbabies everybody wanted.
Yeah. No, good for you.
It was hard. It was really hard. It was hard. It was hard. And people would come and say, "Oh, you mean you're not breastfeeding?" And it's stuff like that. I'm like, why? And so I always have what is the word? Empathy for moms, especially as a mom of multiples, for new moms, for moms that are traveling with babies. I had friends that didn't understand why I couldn't come hang out.
When you just had twins?
Just bring the twins. I'm like, how should I bring them?
No, you come to me.
First of all, I live in an apartment. In order for me to get to my car with 2 car seats, I have to leave one baby upstairs.
Yeah.
To put one in the car and leave the one in the car to go back and get one.
Oh my gosh.
In the public parking lot. How should I come out, first of all?
No, that's 100% people come to you. That's crazy.
So, yeah, women go through a lot, and I think that we need to be given more grace.
Mm-hmm. And give ourselves more grace.
And I used to be really hard on myself because there was, especially culturally, there's all this expectation, right? About how you should look when you're outside. You have to be put together. You know, your house should be amazingly tidy. Your kids should always have their hair done, and all this, you know. And I'm like, wait a minute, I have twins. I'm working full time. I have a photography business. I'm running Clever Girl Finance. It's okay for me to look crazy in the grocery store every now and then.
Yes.
It's okay. It's fine.
And I think we're shifting now to where people are showing up more authentic, right? Like even if it's like, hey, I'm on a reel and my kitchen's a mess in the background. Like it's nice to see that not everybody's home is like perfect and pristine at all times. Or, hey, I do go out of the house without makeup on, or, you know, there's just things like that where it's like you have to show up in the moment and authentic, and you're doing so much incredible work for women with money. So I feel like, you know, this is all so important to the story, but I would love to go into how Clever Girl Finance came about and how you started teaching. You know, you started the blog and kind of detailing what you were doing, and then what happened? Because now it's huge. I mean, you're running a huge empire, Bola.
Sorry, I sidetracked the whole conversation.
That's okay. No,
now we're just getting here.
It's all part of the story. No, that's great.
So, as I said, I came out of college and first generation immigrant. The other thing I wanted to mention was that my mother paid for me to go to college. So, my dad had retired at this point, and I went to high school in Nigeria. I was born in Austria because my dad was working there, but we had moved back to Nigeria. I was in high school there. And at the time, the Nigerian government was going through, and the college system was going through all these strikes because of economic instability. So like my cousins were taking like 6, 7, 8 years to graduate from a 4-year program because every few months, kids had to leave school because professors wouldn't teach and etc. So my parents were like, how do we avoid this? How do we I'm the last born, have Bola have a better college experience than this, right? And so my mom was like, well, I went to school at the time that my mom was going to college and I was going to her college classes. We lived in Austria. So my mom was like, we can send her to the school I went to. I have an aunt and uncle who live there and she can stay with them and we can try to save on costs there. I couldn't qualify for any student loans because I'm an international student. I wasn't an American citizen at the time. So my mom was like, okay, I'm working. And she was migrating to the US at the time. So I'm going to work and you're going to go to school. And your job is to get good grades and do well. See what scholarships you can get. So my mom, who was an investment banker with all these side hustles, migrated to the US for the sole purpose of supporting me in Austria while I went to college because she was changing currencies. And my mom came here and she was working as a nanny. And I was in Austria at an American university. I couldn't get a visa to come here at the time, which is why I went there to her alma mater. And I got a partial scholarship. I stayed with my aunt and uncle and I went to school there. So my mom was working as a nanny, paying for my college education at the expense of her retirement. Because if she was in Nigeria working, she would have been fine. And so coming out of college, I just really wanted to make my parents proud. I'm like, my parents have sacrificed all this for me. The assumption was that, oh yeah, Bola doesn't have student loans. You know, her parents are rich to pay for college. I didn't have student loans because I couldn't qualify for them. And we could have gotten aunts and uncles to co-sign for my student loans, but they had already co-signed for my brothers. And it was too much to ask them again to take on the burden of my debt. So I went to college over 5.5 years instead of 4 years. Because that was how the money was going to get me through college. I couldn't do a 4-year stint like that. I had to spread it out. So coming out of college, I was saving as much as I could. Before I got my first job, I got a job at CVS. I had already moved here at the time. I had got my green card. I got a job at CVS because I was just so ready to work. So I had my undergrad degree. I was working at CVS for a few months, and then I got my main job. And I was just saving and investing as much as I could. And so, like I said, I was blogging about finances, how I spend my money, sharing with my friends. And then fast forward several years, when I got married, I had my kids, and I was experiencing this postpartum depression. And I was like, I want to do something that matters. I like my job. It's great, but this is like, I'm a number here. If they fire me, what does it mean? What does it matter? I was reflecting on my whole life from the lens of a depressed new mom.
Exhausted new mom. Yeah.
Nothing to do but think about her life at 2 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
with 2 babies in her lap. So I was like, okay, why don't I do something that I talk about all the time? And I was trying to figure out what that was, something that interested me. And everything that came to me and I talked to my friends about was something I talked about all the time, which was money. So I started a blog called Clever Girl Finance that I came up with one time in the shower. And I just started writing about my personal finances. And then I would showcase my friends who had invested or saved or done something good with their money. And then I had friends who were either getting married or getting divorced or had a story about finance or had built a business or had done something, and I would share that. And that's really where the business started. And I think it took off because it was women like me who looked like me, who could relate to me, who were sharing their stories from an honest lens. And it wasn't always, I'm a millionaire, I've invested, I've saved $100,000. It is, I'm paying off $100,000 in debt. I'm getting divorced, I'm starting over. I'm getting married, we're joining our finances. It was honest conversation. And so I started the blog, social media, I think Instagram was the first social media, and then the podcast. And it just started to gather an audience that way, just from organic interest of, wow, there's women like me, no shame, no judgment. We can laugh about stupid money decisions that I have made and other people have made without feeling shamed or judged or embarrassed. Because there is also, and there still is also, a lot of shame and embarrassment on social media around money, especially when it comes to women. You see it often, like, the stereotypes, and they try to turn it into something funny, but sometimes it's not, like girl math. I get that's funny sometimes, but when people start to do parodies on girl math and then it makes us look stupid, we're not stupid. We're very smart, right? And so there's things like that that make women not want to be vocal about their finances because they don't want to be judged. And so we basically created or Clever Girl Finance became a safe space where you could just come to an Instagram live, or you could come on the website, or you could join. I had an accountability program on Facebook. You come there and just talk about your money mistakes and not feel shamed about it because you made a mistake. Who hasn't made a mistake, right? And so that was really the beginnings of Clever Girl Finance. And it kind of grew from that organically. And then the free aspect of it came from the pandemic. So during the pandemic, Clever Girl Finance the idea started in 2015. And it's, I'd say 10 years.
Yeah, wow.
During the pandemic, basically the world was over. We didn't know what we didn't know.
It did feel that way.
We were all locked down at home. We didn't know, we just thought the world was over, really. And it was ending for many people because lives were being lost. It was awful. My husband is a physician. His boss died the week before. My mom eventually became a nurse. My sister-in-law is a nurse. My other sister-in-law is a doctor. Not good. Nothing was good. Everything was horrific. And I was home with the kids and my husband was at work because that's where he needed to be. And I remember people were emailing, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I can't buy groceries. I don't know what to do. And I was like, okay, if the world's going to end, the best thing I can do is figure out how to at least give certain families money to buy groceries. So I think every week we would give a few families $100 gift cards to Target and Walmart to buy groceries. And then other people heard about it in our audience. People wanted to donate. So we started giving out gift cards for people to buy groceries. It was not nearly enough because the audience was pretty big at that time, but we did what we could. And then as people started to realize, okay, the world isn't quite ending, but we have an online life to live. People are like, I can't pay my bills. I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm like, wait a minute. We have all these courses. If there's anything that we can do for our audience, it is to give them these resources at the time that they need them most. And so I made all the courses on the platform free, I think about a week after we went into official lockdown. And that was just one way of giving back. And I'm like, you know what? everybody, we're all like, there's nothing else to do at this point but stay home, watch TV, and here are the courses. Nobody's making any money. So I did that. And from there, it just really took off because we had all the people sign up for the courses. And I guess word just spread that, wow, Clever Finance has all these courses for free. If you want to try to get back on your feet this season, figure out how to save, how to invest, do that. And so we went from being a paid course platform to being a free platform. And the revenue sort of reinvented itself because then we had more brands that wanted to work with us. And because we create so much content, we had other companies that wanted us to create content for them, like ghostwriting or like just content that was forward facing to them. We had advertising revenue and other things like that. So in a way, it was kind of like a silver lining where we gave our audience this, but then it made up for itself in so many other ways. And so that's really how the courses became free. I was like, it doesn't make sense for us to have this paywall at the time that the audience needs us most. And I know many companies did it temporarily. And I was like, well, like if my mission is to support women during challenging times, and pandemic is not the only challenging time a woman faces. And I think back to the situation my mom was in. Women face challenging times when they have kids, when some women have to stop working to stay home to take care of their kids because sometimes the numbers don't work out, right? To go back to work. Divorces, leaving a marriage unexpectedly, losing a spouse, sending children to college. So many reasons in life.
Yeah.
where you need, and what I realized with personal finance is that nobody is really paying attention to their personal finances until life happens. Because money isn't really a topic that people want to deal with. Like, oh, let's sit down and go over your budget every 10 minutes. Nobody wants to do that. People look at their budget when they need to. I mean, if I'm being realistic, like as finance experts, we're like, oh, budget every month. The truth is that most people really are going to look at their budget when they have something coming up, a good thing or a bad thing, or when life throws them something good or something bad. There's a situation that causes us to pay attention to our finances from the vast majority of people. Some people are just trying to, some people do it just because, but most people, it's a reason. And so I wanted Clever Finance to be the platform that's there to support people when they have their reason. And the best way to do that is by making the resource free. Because why shouldn't it be free, right? And we can figure out how to make money through other avenues, especially if, again, like I said, the mission is to support women and help us get to this point where we're living life in our own terms and making smart decisions about our money. We get there with support. And so that's kind of how I figured making Clever Finance a free platform.
I love that. That is, I mean, it's so meaningful in what you just said about all the different seasons of life that women go through where you need support. And then also kind of calling out, yeah, people don't look at their money until they absolutely have to, whether it's for a good reason or a bad reason. So then you're there whenever that thing comes up, which is so wonderful. Are your Erin Condrin, is that collab out? I know that was
that collab is actually winding up. So it's been out since 2020, about a year and almost over 18 months now. Yes.
I remember when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Because I was definitely like, I always had a planner. I always wrote things down. Now I'm on the electronic planner side. But when I saw that you were doing the collab, I was really excited. And obviously you've had great partnerships and collab opportunities. But the work you're doing is so meaningful, and it's so great that you found a way to still, obviously you also have bills to pay and you have a business to run and you have employees and people need to get paid. So it's wonderful that you were able to support the people the way you intended with free content, but still make sure that you are getting what you need to run the business and the platform and the courses on the back end. So there is a way to do that and still kind of stay true to your mission.
Absolutely. And it was, I always kind of going back to what you said about, it's the business still need to make money, still need to pay the team. And I've always wanted to, before the pandemic, wanted to be able to do more and try to figure out how do I do more, but I'm not a nonprofit. I don't have any government funding. I don't have any grants or anything like that. So how do I do more? How would I be able to do more and make it like more accessible? And when I made the decision for during the pandemic, I had no idea. We didn't have another source of income. I just had business savings. I'm okay, we'll write the savings out. And then if that's the end of the business and end of the world, thank you all. That's really the mindset I was, because again, I was also very emotionally overwhelmed, right? I have a husband who's going into the hospital. I have a mother who's like, my mom's an infant nurse, like my baby, so she's worried about her baby. This is COVID. People are dying everywhere. We know so many people who died. My sister-in-law, I was like, you know what? Look, my real life is lifing. This is the least of my problems. It can be free, right? Like my real life outside of my business is actually happening here. So that's where I was. And so when it became free and I realized, wait a minute, there's a brand partnership over opportunity here. There's this other opportunity here. This is another way we can make income here. I started getting all these other ideas, advertising here, right? We didn't used to run ads on the site or on the podcast, but I realized the audience actually doesn't really mind that because they're getting access to the resource. And if that replaces you having to pay for a course, then why not, right?
Absolutely.
And so we found ways to replace that income, and it changed the game for us, to be honest. So I'm grateful for that. I guess, I don't know if I'd call it an opportunity because it was a crazy time in the world, but the opportunity to be able to make the courses free, that exposed us to other ways to earn money. And also just having savings in the bank, similar to personal finances. I treat my business like that. There always has to be money saved in the event that a pandemic happens. Life happens to your business, right?
Yeah.
To weather a storm.
Yeah. Bola, what would you say to our audience? What do you want to leave them with today? Could be about life, business, motherhood, finances, any big takeaways that you want them to glean from all of this?
I think given the current economic climate, I've been getting the same question about finances. Like, what do I do? What do I save? Do I sell my investments? And the advice I've given everybody, that I've taken myself, that I've always given everybody, regardless, is that money gives you options. And you need to come up with a plan to create those options for yourself. That means looking at your finances and getting a handle on your debt and putting money aside in the bank and determining what number is going to give you peace of mind. Because no matter what is happening in the economy, in the national economy, global economy, your personal economy, if you can look at your bank account and say, you know what, I can walk away from this relationship, from this job, from this neighborhood, from this city, and you can create that option for yourself. I can give my money to a cause that is meaningful to me. I can help this person. I can support my kids. Once you can create all those options, it's a little less pressure when you're seeing everything happening around you. We can't control, right? Control the world. We can't predict the future, but that element of having options gives you a level of peace of mind and minimizes stress. That is so key.
Priceless, really.
Yeah, yes. So figure out how to get some money in the bank. And it may be getting uncomfortable. I've done all the jobs. You can do all the jobs for a short period of time. I have worked multiple jobs as a mother of twin babies, starting a business, running a side hustle, going to work full time. You can figure out how to do stuff for a short period of time. Sell stuff in your kitchen, your garage. You have clothes you have not worn. You have, like, as my kids were going past stages, the crib was on Facebook Marketplace. The stroller was on Facebook Marketplace. The food processor, that stupid breast pump.
Get it out of here.
Get money from all those things and put it in the bank to create options. And sometimes it's not comfortable. I didn't want to work at CVS with a college degree. My friends are working on Wall Street, making $100,000. And they're like, well, what are you doing? Oh, I got a job at CVS making $5 an hour in the photo department. But sometimes you have to do what you need to do because you have a plan. So don't get caught up in what people think about you. Forget about social media and just focus on you and what you need to do to create that peace of mind for yourself.
That's great. Thank you so much, Bola, for being with us today. This was such a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Sugar Daddy Podcast, yo. Learn how to make them pockets grow. Financial freedom's where we